Hey all. I'm looking scruffy today. I just got done playing drums. It's a blizzard. I decided not to shave, so apologies in advance. Um, we're getting back on track with build something, but I said back on track. I got derailed. So MCP has been exploding for Claude in the last couple weeks. The team from June, which is more like a dashboard analytics product, launched this MCP kind of like an app store they call it, which makes it really easy to give Claude superpowers. So the reason I haven't used Claude today is because it has a lot of limitations in terms of like projects only have so many files you can attach to them, or out of the gate it doesn't have the ability to go read a link or URL or do a web search or any of those things, especially early on. So I just worked out of GPT and relied on being able to prompt and edit, knowing that Claude has better overall output in terms of writing skills, coding skills, and whatnot. So I actually did an experiment this last week, and what I did was set up Claude, set up Floor, and I started playing with some of the MCPs. Now, the most, let's say, nerdy and fun and also impressive piece of this for me has been the Memory MCP, which basically lets you create a local, meaning on your computer, knowledge graph. So if you think about how you work in these spaces, you generally have different projects, different thoughts or interests, different things that you're using it for on a regular basis. Work is probably a big part of that. Hobbies might be a big part of that. You might have side hustles or projects or things that you take on. So you have all these different pieces. So a knowledge graph works in the terms that you build these nodes or these buckets of information around them, and then you also define the relationships between all these different things. Some of them might connect in multiple places. Some of them might just connect to one little node. But the idea is you're creating this neural network of information, and you're helping the AI instead of with, let's say, traditional RAG. You have your vectorized database, and you give it a prompt, and it's going to take that prompt and essentially function like a search engine and go and try to find the most relevant information directly and answer as directly as it can. So a one-to-one if it can. It asks a question, I have an answer here, it's going to try to find that. That's not as flexible or performant in a lot of ways, and it doesn't tend to create more dynamic experiences, which is what I'm designing for work and for fun right now. So, or how I use it, right? Like I use it in multiple use cases for different docs. I use it for decoding or fixing files, or I use it for creating documentation. The other day, I even used it to gut check to make sure that everything that was in design aligned up to the way I wrote my requirements. Gave it screenshots, gave it requirements. So what I'll say is everything has been better. Every single use case that I moved into Claude after taking a few minutes to build this knowledge graph out has been so much better. So I'm going to show you how to do that because I'm not going to keep working in GPT at this point, but I'm going to use GPT to move over. So if I go into Claude projects, I don't think I set one up. Okay, so let's set one up. We will call it PMBS Detector. I think I like detector better than tester. Building the open project when they are bullshitting themselves or others and why. So let's create this. So now the first thing I'm going to say is, so here's a good example. If I go into these project instructions is where my prompt goes, and then the knowledge is basically files that I can put in there. The other day when I tried this, I put in like 3 files and it was at my max. Now, files are different than artifacts. So if you generate artifacts, you can save them to your project as knowledge, and that counts as something it can reference. But if you upload a file you created elsewhere, it doesn't. So it's actually better, in my opinion, in my experiments so far, to like take something you created elsewhere, give it as information here, and ask it to create an artifact, and then save it to the project. But we'll get into the weeds later. So what I'm going to do is basically say, give you information about this project. And I want you to build out a new node. And I think knowledge graph is usually enough, but I'm going to specify MCP because I have other projects and information across here that are referencing knowledge graph, and I don't want to confuse it. Fix a typo or two quick. Okay, so should tell me it's ready. Now I'm going to go back to GPT because I have a project here. I have my information here. I'm just going to ask it, I'm just going to ask it for something like this as a starting point. Now I can go and get more detailed later, but Claude will also learn as we go, and I can do a gut check at any chat that I have to say, hey, go ahead and add this to the knowledge graph, or make sure we're capturing this. And those are things with Claude that I really like, is I can say, add it to the knowledge graph, or I can say, let's create an artifact. I can give it different commands. And MCP actually does a number of things too. So real quick, while this is running, I'm just going to show you what Fluor looks like. So you download it, it runs on your computer, and MCP basically is a server that lets you run these specific capabilities and plug them in to Claude. So right now I have memory is the one I'm talking about. Fetch is useful, but sometimes stalls or gets stuck or loops, so you have to pay attention. Browser just lets it open a browser, pages, and go to certain things. And then I think browser use lets it take over, but I haven't done much with that yet. I've been busy. So that's what Fluor looks like. So let's go back and see what it gave us. Interactive bullshit score, analytics, yada yada. I probably don't even need all this, but let's let it finish what it's doing. I don't remember saying, see, this is where GPT is just making stuff up, because I don't know if I ever said anything about monetizing it. Maybe I did for an example. Okay, I don't need next steps at this point. So I'm just going to capture this here. We're going to give it to Claude. So I'm going to copy it. We're going to open up Claude. See what it does. So it's going to ask me for permissions, which is kind of annoying, but this is a Claude thing, not a Fluor thing. So you can see it's running create entities. It should ask me for permission. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe they fixed that because it was firing so many times as people start to use it more and more. Oh, here we go. So I'm going to allow for this chat. It'll ask for permission to use different functions within the chat just because they want to warn you before you start running code that could be corrupt or could cause issues. I'm going to blindly trust it for now. And the other thing I'm going to go back to is PRD scoring rubric that I had in here. I think this is what I did the video on last time. So let me see what I actually gave it to create this. I feel like I had better research in here somewhere, which I probably did if I dig in. If I just search PRD mistakes, maybe. March 15th, so that was recent. Scoring rubric was today. Common PRD mistakes. Prompt design. PRD evaluation rubric. Let's go back to the original one that it gave me. This is a more usable format. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this one that we made the first time, and I'm going to ask Claude to recreate it as an artifact and make it better. So it looks like it's good to go. So I think for the sake of me being organized, I'm going to go back to, nope, not that one, sorry. I'm going to go back to all projects, and I'm going to go to the detector and start a new chat. I'm going to tell it to take the following rubric and make it more clear and easier to use for AI agent when evaluating PRD docs, or yeah, PRDs, should know that. I'm just going to paste it in. I also love that Claude will take any large text or things that are pasted in and just put them as a separate attachment. So it keeps it a lot cleaner in here. So it's already doing something I don't love in terms of structure. I'm going to ask it for JSON. I don't know why I said CSV. When I've experimented in the past, most models perform better with JSON instead of CSVs. Maybe it's a formatting thing because commas tend to get messed up. So here's the scoring and summary down here. It gave it to me as multiple tables, like I said. I'm trying to think about how to ask for this clearly. Let's use terms for quality instead of numbers for now. And let's make them snarky. Like total bullshit. Fair amount of bullshit, some bullshit detected, bullshit free, absolutely zero bullshit. I'll tell it to use BS instead of bullshit so it's not swearing all the time. All right, let's see how it does. Now the other thing it's going to do, I think, okay, it's going to edit the artifact. So it knows that I want this to be the artifact. And it's going to change the format of it, or it's giving me an entirely new one. I'm not sure. AI-friendly PRD evaluation rubric. Maybe it thinks that AI would read multiple tables better. I guess I didn't ask it that, and I probably should have. So this is building this out. I guess I showed you the knowledge graph piece first. It technically, because I gave it all the information, doesn't need the knowledge graph, but I did ask it to make it better, and I'm trusting that it'll do that from there. The other thing I can do without really giving it any real requirements or context is if I go back, let's say, let me ask it, I'm going to give it no context. Wait, what was I thinking? Was I thinking notebook LM? I wasn't. That was for something else in building. Let's Let's see what it thinks. Now, what I was impressed with when I did this for myself is I gave it information about my family because I'm planning a trip. Gave it information about my 4-year-old being a fan of like finding rocks and crystals, my wife being afraid of the kids being in murky water and kind of afraid of the ocean in general, even though I love it and love to surf. And so I asked it to plan me a trip, and it used those details and a number of other details I gave it about how old my kids are, what kind of hikes we like to go on, things about the hikes that we do or don't like we like challenging hikes, but we don't like really narrow edges in case we are carrying the kids. So it caught every detail and every context, and it was really thoughtful about how it planned our trip. So I like that it's asking questions. Real feedback, real-time feedback important. Submit and review workflow. That's what I want. And then clean minimal interface, context parameters, simple form. Specify what kind of evaluation they want. Submit button. Results. I didn't know it could do concept sketches. Let's see what it does. You're gonna give me code? I didn't ask it to do it for the document scoring system. It looks like it's giving me a table, so it got confused. Or maybe it didn't. We'll see what it comes up with. I don't know if it'll render it. Oh, hey, look at that. Actually did a pretty good job. Standard essay. So UI is it's not bad for a mockup, and actually I prefer this to image generation in a lot of ways. So what I'll do next is basically go back to my prompts and my agentic workflow piece of this and start generating the actual prompts out and testing them. And I have not done that with projects yet. Generally in GPT, I'd create a custom GPT, or I'd use the back end of it and do like an agent just to test some of the chats and back and forth. But we'll see how this goes. So this is kind of a derail this week in terms of how I'm doing it, but this structure for work and for everything else that I'm doing, creating the projects and then creating the knowledge graph has been 10x better than anything I've been able to get out of LLMs. Usually it takes a lot more prompting, a lot more tweaking, a lot more back and forth. I think I did the personal one on my other computer. That's the other thing to remember, is just this is local, so it's running on your local computer. So if you have multiple devices or things like that, kind of be intentional about what you set up where. Maybe at some point we'll find a way to sync them, and that way you don't have to maintain 2 different versions. But anyway, just wanted to share that. I think it's really helpful. Try it out. Let me know what you think.